Billionaire CEO Alexander "Alex" Vega goes undercover as a down-on-his-luck electrician and falls for Camilla Rivera, a local beekeeper. He maintains the lie, but when Camilla gets pregnant, he still can't bring himself to reveal his true identity. Alex's jealous cousin Valentina discovers the affair and fabricates false evidence to make Camilla believe Alex is married to a wealthy heiress. Devastated, Camilla breaks off the relationship. But before we reveal what happens next, if you also love stories like this, click to subscribe now and help us bring you more tales of courage and loyalty. Thank you. And now, let's see what happened. Alexander Vega stared out the window of his 23rd floor office, contemplating the bustling cityscape of Chicago that stretched out before him. At 30 years old, he had built a business empire that many envied, but which had become a gilded cage for him. Vega Industries, the company he inherited from his father and transformed into a powerhouse in the tech sector, generated millions monthly, but couldn't buy what he desired most: true love. Born into a traditional Chicago society family, Alexander had grown up surrounded by luxury and privilege. From childhood, he learned that his wealth was both a blessing and a curse. The people around him always had ulterior motives, and the relationships he tried to build invariably failed when they discovered his true identity. His mother, Eleanor Vega, passed away when he was 15, leaving a void that no amount of money could fill. His father, a cold and calculating man, had educated him for business, but never taught him how to love or be loved genuinely. Loneliness weighed on his shoulders like an invisible cloak. In the past 2 years, he had been involved in a series of failed relationships that always followed the same pattern. Stunning women who seemed interested in him, but who inevitably revealed that they were more in love with his bank account than with who he really was. The last of these experiences had been particularly bitter. Isabella, a lawyer he met at a charity event, pretended for months to be in love, only to later discover that she was having a parallel relationship with another wealthy man, collecting suitors like trophies. This disappointment led him to a deep reflection on his life. Alexander realized he needed to find out if there was someone capable of loving him for the man he was inside, not for the assets he possessed. That's when an audacious and desperate idea was born. Assume a false identity. If he could pass himself off as an ordinary person, maybe he would find the authentic love he was looking for. For weeks, he meticulously prepared his new persona. Diego Morales would be a 28-year-old unemployed electrician from a working-class neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. He studied the vocabulary, the mannerisms, the daily concerns of someone struggling to survive with odd jobs. He rented a small apartment in Pilsen, bought simple clothes at discount stores, and even learned the basics of electrical installations to make his story convincing. The first time he went out as Diego was terrifying and liberating at the same time. Walking the streets without the weight of his last name, without private drivers or security, he felt vulnerable, but also more alive than he had in years. People treated him differently, not with the forced reverence or calculated interest he was used to, but with the naturalness reserved for equals. In the following months, Alexander lived an exhausting double life. During the day, he chaired board meetings and made decisions that affected thousands of employees. At night and on weekends, he transformed into Diego, frequenting dive bars, attending backyard barbecues, and trying to connect with women who were completely unaware of his true status. The first dates were disastrous. Accustomed to luxury, he made gaffes that betrayed his privileged origin. On one occasion, when taking a waitress out to dinner, he instinctively chose a restaurant too expensive for the budget he should have had. In another, he casually mentioned an international trip, forgetting that Diego could never afford such an expense. 18 dates failed miserably, leaving him increasingly skeptical that his plan could work. The frustration grew proportionally to his determination. Alexander knew he was walking an emotional tightrope, but he couldn't give up. The need to find true love had become an obsession that consumed his thoughts and shaped his decisions. He constantly refined his performance as Diego, studying every detail of working-class life, memorizing prices of basic goods, learning about public transportation and affordable housing. His close friends, the few he really had, began to notice changes in his behavior. He had become more reserved, refused social invitations, and seemed constantly distracted during work meetings. Valentina, his cousin and vice president of the company, expressed constant concern about his emotional state. Although Alexander suspected that behind this concern, there was also interest in the direction of the family business. The loneliness he felt went beyond the lack of romantic companionship. It was an existential loneliness, the feeling that no one really knew him or cared about his fears, dreams, and vulnerabilities. As a child, he used to imagine what it would be like to have a normal family, with parents who argued about money, siblings with whom to share toys, and genuine moments of simple happiness. Now, as an adult and successful, he would pay any amount to experience that normality, even if only for a few moments. Despite all the failures, Alexander held on to the hope that somewhere in Chicago, there was a woman capable of loving Diego Morales for the humble and hardworking man he pretended to be. He had no idea that this hope was about to materialize in a completely unexpected way, nor that the love he was looking for would come accompanied by moral dilemmas that would test his integrity in ways he never anticipated. It was on a sunny Saturday morning at the Maxwell Street Market that fate finally smiled on Alexander. Dressed in a simple t-shirt and faded jeans, he wandered among the stalls as Diego Morales, observing the vibrant life of the market that he had never really noticed in his previous visits as a businessman. The aroma of fresh fruits, spices, and the contagious energy of the vendors created an atmosphere that made him feel part of something larger and more authentic. It was then that his eyes fell on a small but carefully organized stall where jars of golden honey gleamed under the natural light. Behind the counter, a young woman with brown hair tied in a ponytail was patiently explaining the medicinal properties of propolis to an elderly customer. There was something about her posture, in the affectionate way she spoke about her product, that immediately captured Alex's attention. Camila Rivera was 27 years old and carried in her eyes the sparkle of someone who had found her purpose in life. Daughter of small farmers from upstate Illinois, she had transformed the old family apiary into a prosperous and sustainable business. Every Saturday, she came to the Maxwell Street Market to sell her handmade products, pure honey, propolis, beeswax, and homemade sweets that she prepared with recipes passed down from generation to generation. Alex approached the stall with a racing heart, feigning casual interest in the products. Camilla greeted him with a genuine smile that completely disarmed him. Unlike the sophisticated women he was used to dealing with, she emanated a natural simplicity that instantly reassured him. "Good morning. Is this your first time here?" she asked, noticing his somewhat lost demeanor among the honey jars. Her voice had a sweetness that perfectly matched the product she sold. "Yeah, I'm just browsing," he replied, momentarily forgetting that he should maintain the more working-class accent he had practiced. "I heard the honey here is really good." Camilla smiled even wider. "It's not just good, it's special. This one," she pointed to a darker jar of honey, "comes from our eucalyptus hives. The bees collect the nectar very early when the dew is still on the flowers. It gives it a unique, slightly earthy flavor, you know?" As she passionately explained the production process, Alex found himself completely absorbed. It wasn't just what she said, but how she said it. There was genuine passion in every word, an authentic pride in the work she did. She spoke of the bees as if they were her friends, of the apiary as if it were a magical place, and of the customers as if they were family. "Have you been working with this for a long time?" he asked, genuinely interested. "Since I was little. My grandpa started with 2 hives back in the 70s. Today we have 43, and each one has its own personality, she replied, laughing. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. Hive number 17, for example, produces a lighter honey because the bees prefer the orange blossoms from the neighboring orchard. Alex bought 3 different jars of honey, more to prolong the conversation than out of necessity. Camilla carefully wrapped each one, explaining the characteristics of each variety and giving tips on how to best appreciate the flavors. When he mentioned working as an electrician, she showed neither disinterest nor pity. She just treated him with the same natural kindness she showed to everyone. That must be a tough job, she commented. My dad always says that anyone who works with electricity has to have steady hands and a calm mind. That's true, he agreed, impressed with the simple wisdom of the observation. And you? Have you always wanted to work with bees? Camilla's eyes lit up. Actually, I dream of expanding all this, not just selling honey, but creating a training center in sustainable beekeeping. There are so many people in rural areas who could improve their lives with it, you know. Bees are fundamental to the environment, and they also generate income. It's a big dream, but she shrugged, smiling shyly. Why can't you make it happen? Asked Alex, feeling a strange sensation in his chest when he saw the vulnerability she showed. Money, right? These things are expensive, but I don't give up easily. I'm saving little by little, who knows? One day, at that moment, Alex felt something he hadn't experienced in years, the genuine desire to help someone without expecting anything in return. As a businessman, he could solve Camilla's financial problems with a simple bank transfer. As Diego, however, he could only offer words of encouragement and sincere admiration for her determination. They talked for more than an hour until other customers started lining up at the stall. Alex said goodbye reluctantly, but not before asking if she would be there the following Saturday. Camilla's positive response made him smile in a way he had forgotten was possible. Throughout the week, Alex couldn't get Camilla out of his head. Unlike the other women he had met, she had shown no interest in impressing him or finding out more about his personal life. She had treated him as an equal, with respect and naturalness. There were no calculating glances, questions about his possessions, or attempts at seduction. Just an honest conversation between 2 people who were getting to know each other. The following Saturday, he returned to the market with his heart racing. Camilla was there, radiant as always, serving customers with the same passion as the week before. When she saw him, her face lit up in a smile that made Alex feel like he was the most important person in the world. Diego, I'm so glad you came back, she exclaimed. I brought something new today. I tried a new honey cake recipe that my grandma used to make. Would you like to try it? He tasted the cake and praised it sincerely. It was delicious, but more than that, it had been made with care and dedication that could be felt in every bite. They talked again for a long time, and this time Alex risked asking her out for coffee after she finished selling her products. I'd love to, she replied without hesitation. I know a place nearby that makes delicious coffee and isn't expensive. The simplicity of the suggestion touched Alex deeply. She wasn't trying to impress him with fancy places or expecting him to spend more than he could afford. She was genuinely interested in his company, not his resources. That afternoon, drinking coffee in a simple bakery downtown, Alex knew he had found something rare and precious. Camilla was intelligent, funny, determined, and incredibly sweet. More importantly, she liked Diego Morales, the unemployed electrician, knowing absolutely nothing about Alexander Vega, the multi-millionaire. For the first time in years, he felt truly hopeful about love. At the same time, a shadow of anxiety began to form in his mind. How long could he keep up the lie, and what would happen when the truth inevitably came out? In the weeks that followed the meeting at the market, Alex threw himself headfirst into his double life with an intensity that he himself did not imagine he possessed. Every weekend became sacred. The moments when Diego Morales came to life and he could be with Camilla without the barriers imposed by his true identity. The relationship blossomed naturally. Camilla introduced him to her world with touching generosity. She took him to the family apiary in upstate Illinois, where Alex experienced for the first time the fascination of being surrounded by thousands of bees working harmoniously. Wearing the borrowed protective gear, he watched in awe as she handled the honey frames with the confidence of someone born for it. "Isn't it amazing how they know exactly what to do?" Camilla asked, gently holding a frame filled with perfect hexagons. "Each one has its function, but they all work for the good of the colony. It's like an ideal society." Alex, accustomed to the corporate world, where people often worked against each other, was deeply impressed by the metaphor. It was a life lesson that no business school had ever taught him. Camilla's father, Roberto, a 60-year-old man with hands calloused by work and kind eyes, welcomed Diego with the typical hospitality of the countryside. During lunch at the family's simple but welcoming home, Alex tasted home-cooked food prepared with fresh ingredients from their own land. Camilla's mother, Lucia, made a point of telling funny stories from her daughter's childhood, while Camilla blushed with embarrassment and laughed at the same time. "Camilla has always been stubborn," said Lucia, serving another portion of chicken and rice to Diego. "When she was 8 years old, she found a lost swarm in the backyard. Instead of being afraid, she spent hours watching them. She said she wanted to learn to talk to the bees. And she succeeded," joked Roberto. "Today they obey her better than us." Alex felt deeply touched by the simplicity and authenticity of that family environment. There was genuine love in that house, a kind of wealth that his money had never been able to buy. For the first time in years, he experienced what it meant to be part of something bigger than himself. In the following dates, Camilla showed him other aspects of her life. She took him to the local co-op, where she sold part of her production, introduced him to the friends from her biology studies that she had to give up for lack of resources, and shared her detailed plans for the beekeeping training center she dreamed of creating. "Just imagine," she said, her eyes shining with enthusiasm as they walked through the farmer's market where she also sold her products, a place where rural families could learn sustainable beekeeping techniques, not just to produce honey, but to understand the fundamental role of bees in the ecosystem. We could have courses, teaching materials, even a lab to develop new products. Alex listened fascinated, not only by the project itself, but by the passion with which she described it. Camilla didn't dream of fancy cars or mansions. She dreamed of making a difference in people's lives and in the preservation of the environment. It was a type of ambition that he had forgotten existed, an ambition driven by love for others, not by personal greed. As the days passed, Alex found himself increasingly involved in Camilla's life. He helped her carry the boxes to the market, learned to identify the different types of honey just by the aroma, and even tried to help at the apiary. Although his practical skills were limited, Camilla found his initial clumsiness funny, but immensely valued his genuine interest. "You're different from the other men I've met," she confessed one Sunday afternoon as they walked through Lincoln Park. "Most people think beekeeping is for old people or people without ambition. Not you. You understand that it's important." Camilla's words warmed Alex's heart, but also planted a seed of guilt that grew with each passing day. He was living a lie, however well-intentioned it might be. Every moment of happiness with her was tempered by the anxiety of when and how he would reveal the truth. During the week, when he returned to his life as CEO of Vega Industries, Alex discovered that his priorities were changing. Business meetings seemed less important, quarterly profits less exciting. Instead, he found himself thinking about how he could use his influence and resources to support environmental causes and rural development projects. Valentina noticed the changes in her cousin's behavior with growing concern. During a board meeting, she questioned him about his lack of focus on the company's latest projects. "Alex, are you sure everything is okay? You seem distant lately," she said, with an expression that mixed genuine concern with some professional irritation. "I'm just reflecting on the direction of the company," he replied evasively. "Maybe it's time we think about projects with more social impact." The answer left Valentina even more intrigued, but Alex did not elaborate on the matter. How could he explain that he was in love with a woman who didn't even know his real existence? Weekends with Camilla became the highlight of his life. They visited free museums, had picnics in public parks, watched movies in neighborhood theaters. Alex discovered simple pleasures he had forgotten existed. More importantly, he discovered what it meant to be loved for who he really was, or at least for who he pretended to be. Camilla was affectionate, intelligent, and surprisingly wise for her age. She had well-formed opinions on a variety of subjects, from environmental policy to philosophy of life. She treated Diego as an equal, asked for his opinion on important business decisions, and shared her fears and dreams with a transparency that left Alex simultaneously touched and terrified. One night, after a home-cooked dinner at Alex's rented apartment in Pilsen, Camilla fell asleep in his arms on the small, uncomfortable couch. He watched her for long minutes, feeling a mixture of deep love and overwhelming guilt. How had he gotten to this point? How could he keep up the charade without destroying the most important person he had ever found? That morning, while Camilla slept peacefully, Alex made a decision that would forever change the course of his life. He would continue living as Diego for as long as necessary to build a solid foundation with Camilla, and then, gradually, reveal the truth. He was sure that if she truly loved him, she would be able to forgive the initial lie. What Alex didn't imagine was that fate was preparing twists that would test this conviction in ways he could never anticipate. 3 months had passed since the first meeting at the Maxwell Street Market, and Alex was completely surrendered to the love he felt for Camilla. What had begun as a desperate search for authenticity had turned into something much deeper and more complex. He wasn't just in love, he was living the life he had always wanted to have, even if it was built on a lie. It was on a rainy Thursday afternoon that the first major obstacle arose completely unexpectedly. Alex was in his penthouse in the Gold Coast, reviewing the company's financial reports, when his cell phone rang. It was Camilla, and there was something different in her voice, an excitement mixed with nervousness that he had never noticed before. "Diego, can you meet me tonight? I need to tell you something very important," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Alex's heart leaped. 1,000 possibilities flashed through his mind in seconds. Had she discovered his true identity? Had someone told her about Alexander Vega, or was it something completely different? "Of course, honey. Is everything okay? You seem nervous," he replied, trying to stay calm. "Yes, it's better if we talk in person. Can we meet at the park near your place at 8? They met under a light rain that made the air denser and charged with expectation. Camilla was visibly anxious, pacing back and forth until Alex arrived. When she saw him, she ran towards him and hugged him tightly, as if she needed all the courage he could give her. "Diego, I don't even know how to start," she said, pulling away slightly to look into his eyes. "This morning, I wasn't feeling well, so I decided to go to the doctor, and, well..." She took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant." The world stopped for Alex at that moment. The words echoed in his mind as if they were spoken in slow motion. Pregnant, they were going to have a child who would be born into a lie, who would grow up without knowing who his father really was. The joy he should have felt was instantly overshadowed by panic. How could he raise a child living 2 different lives? How would he explain to his child that during the first months of his life, his father had pretended to be someone else? "Diego, are you okay? You're not saying anything." Camilla's worried voice brought him back to reality. He hugged her again, this time trying to hide his own emotional turmoil. "Sorry, honey. It's huge news. I'm happy, of course I am. I'm just trying to process everything." Camilla smiled, but there was a shadow of insecurity in her eyes. I know it wasn't planned, and I know our financial situation isn't ideal. You're unemployed. I only have the apiary. But Diego, I really want this baby. I want to have a family with you." The purity and sincerity of Camilla's words were like stabs in Alex's heart. There was the woman he loved, vulnerable and hopeful, sharing with him the most important moment of their lives, and he couldn't be completely honest with her. Worse yet, she was worried about financial issues that he could resolve with a simple call to his bank manager, but that Diego Morales would never be able to solve. "Camilla, I want this baby too. I want our family," he said, and those words were absolutely true. "We'll figure it out. I'll find a job, we'll get organized. Everything will be all right." That night, after walking Camilla home and reassuring her with promises of support and love, Alex returned to his apartment in Pilsen in a state of absolute mental confusion. The small room he had become accustomed to considering cozy now seemed claustrophobic. He walked in circles, trying to find a solution to the dilemma that presented itself. As CEO of Vega Industries, he could guarantee the best for Camilla and the baby. The best doctors, private hospitals, top-quality education, a future without financial limitations. As Diego Morales, however, he could barely afford a basic health insurance plan. During the following weeks, the situation became even more complex. Camilla, with her characteristic determination, began to make detailed plans for the arrival of the baby. She calculated budgets, researched prices of baby products, and talked about the need for Diego to find a stable job as quickly as possible. "I found some used cribs really cheap in the neighborhood," she said one Saturday afternoon, as they organized the stall at the market. "And my mom has already offered to make the baby's clothes. We can do it, Diego. It'll be tight, but we can do it." Alex felt his heart breaking with every word. Seeing the woman he loved worrying about issues that he could solve instantly was a torture. But how could he reveal the truth now? "Camilla, I discovered that I am a multi-millionaire," would sound like a bad joke, especially after months of feigning financial difficulties. The psychological pressure began to affect all aspects of Alex's life. At the company, his performance continued to decline. Valentina had scheduled a private meeting to discuss his lack of focus, and he knew he couldn't postpone the conversation for much longer. More worrying still, he began to make small slips in his performance as Diego. On one occasion, he casually mentioned an expensive restaurant that only wealthy people frequented. On another, he demonstrated knowledge about financial investments that an unemployed electrician would never have. Camilla didn't seem to notice, but Alex knew he was walking on an increasingly dangerous tightrope. The most difficult night came 3 weeks after the discovery of the pregnancy. Camilla had had a small, bleeding episode that frightened her deeply. She called Diego in a panic, asking him to take her to the nearest public hospital. Alex arrived at her apartment in upstate Illinois, finding her pale and terrified. On the way to the hospital, she held his hand tightly, whispering prayers softly. In the crowded public hospital waiting room, they waited for more than 3 hours to be seen. Alex observed the precarious environment, the people in desperate situations waiting for care, and felt a deep revolt against himself. With one phone call, he could have taken Camilla to the best private hospital in Chicago. With his credit card, he could ensure that she received immediate care from the best specialists. But Diego Morales could only wait, helpless, in an endless line in the public health system. Fortunately, the examination showed that both Camilla and the baby were fine. The bleeding had been just a scare without consequences, but the experience left Alex deeply shaken. That morning, alone in his apartment, Alex questioned for the first time if he had made the right choice. His search for authentic love was jeopardizing the health and well-being of the woman he loved and the child they were expecting. The lie that had begun as a way to find happiness was turning into a prison that could destroy exactly what he most wanted to protect. For the first time since meeting Camilla, Alex seriously wondered if he should give up everything. reveal the truth and face the consequences, or simply disappear from her life, allowing her to find someone who could love her without lies and limitations. It was on a sunny Tuesday afternoon that unexpected help came to Alex in a way he could never have anticipated. He was in his office at Vega Industries, trying to focus on an international expansion proposal, when his secretary announced that there was an unscheduled visitor waiting for him. "It's a young woman who says she's a beekeeper, Mr. Vega. She insists she has a very interesting business proposal and that she won't take up much of your time." Alex's heart almost stopped. Camilla? Impossible. She didn't even know Alexander Vega existed, let alone the company's address. But when the secretary said the name Camilla Rivera, his world completely crumbled. She entered the office wearing her best outfit, a simple but elegant dress that Alex recognized as the same one she had worn to a friend's wedding. She carried a folder of documents and had in her eyes the same determination she showed when talking about her dreams at the apiary. "Mr. Vega," she began, extending her hand politely, "thank you for seeing me. I know you must be a very busy man." Alex shook her hand mechanically, feeling as if he were in a surreal nightmare. The woman he loved was there, just a few feet away, treating him like a complete stranger. The irony of the situation was so intense that he almost lost his composure. "Please, sit down," he managed to say, indicating one of the armchairs in front of his desk. "How can I help you?" Camilla opened the folder with precise movements, revealing a meticulously prepared project. "Mr. Vega, I researched Vega Industries' social investments and learned that the company has an interest in environmental sustainability projects. I'm here to propose a partnership for a sustainable beekeeping training center." Alex watched fascinated as she presented the project with a professionalism he didn't know she possessed. They were the same dreams she had shared with Diego during their romantic walks, but now transformed into a solid and well-structured business plan. The center would operate on 3 main fronts, she explained, pointing to carefully prepared graphs and spreadsheets. Training of small rural producers, scientific research on the preservation of native bees, and production of certified organic honey. The social return would be immense, and the environmental return incalculable. "It's an interesting project," replied Alex, trying to keep his voice professional while feeling a mixture of pride and panic. "But tell me, what motivated you to seek out our company specifically?" Camilla smiled, and at that moment, Alex saw a special sparkle in her eyes. "To be honest, Mr. Vega, I'm pregnant. My boyfriend is unemployed, and I need to ensure a better future for our family. But it's not just for that reason," she hastened to clarify. "I genuinely believe in this project. I believe it can transform lives." The revelation of the pregnancy in the middle of a corporate environment created a bizarre situation that Alex had never imagined facing. He was hearing about his own child from the mouth of the woman he loved, who had no idea who he really was. "I understand," he said, flipping through the documents to buy time. "And this boyfriend, does he support the project?" "Diego is wonderful," replied Camilla, and her face lit up in a way that made Alex's heart race. "He doesn't understand much about business, but he believes in me. He says that if anyone can make this work, it's me. He's a simple, hard-working man, but he has a huge heart." Alex felt a pang of guilt so intense that it was almost physically painful. There was Camilla, defending and praising a man who didn't even exist, while the real man hid behind a false identity. "Miss Rivera," he said finally, "your project is really impressive, but I need to be honest with you. Vega Industries usually works with partners who already have an established structure. Your project, although promising, is still in the initial phase." Alex saw disappointment pass through Camilla's eyes, but she didn't give up. "Mr. Vega, I know it's a risk, but all great projects started small. And I'm not asking for charity. I'm offering an investment opportunity with a guaranteed return." It was at that moment that Alex had an idea that would change everything. A way to help Camilla without revealing his identity, at least not yet. A way to test if her love for Diego was truly unconditional. Miss Rivera, I'm going to make an unconventional proposal, he said, fully assuming his role as CEO. Vega Industries is interested in your project, but with one condition. We want a local partner, someone trustworthy, who can supervise the day-to-day operations of the center, someone that you personally recommend. Camilla's eyes lit up with renewed hope. Of course, Mr. Vega. What kind of person do you have in mind? Someone close to you, someone you trust completely. This partner would receive a salary commensurate with the position of operations manager, something around $5,000 a month to start. Camilla's eyes widened. To her, $5,000 was a fortune. I know the perfect person. My boyfriend, Diego. He's reliable, dedicated, and although he doesn't have experience in management, he's willing to learn and has an incredible sense of responsibility. Perfect, said Alex, trying to control the emotion in his voice. Then it's decided. Vega Industries will invest in your beekeeping center, and your boyfriend Diego will be our local partner. But there's one condition. We want him to start immediately, even before the official opening of the center. He will need to dedicate himself full-time to the project. Camilla got up from the chair, visibly moved. Mr. Vega, I don't know how to thank you. This will change our life completely. Diego will go crazy when he finds out. After Camilla left, Alex was alone in his office, contemplating the magnitude of what he had just done. He had created an opportunity to gradually reveal his true identity, but he had also put himself in an even more complex situation. How could Diego explain to Camilla that he had gotten such a well-paid job at a company that she herself had approached? More importantly, Alex realized that he had reached the decisive moment of his charade. The help he offered was also a test. If Camilla really loved him, she would be able to accept the truth when it finally came to light. If she couldn't, at least she and the baby would be financially secure. That night, when Diego met Camilla for dinner, she could barely contain her excitement. She told him about the meeting at Vega Industries, about the approved project, about the incredible opportunity that had arisen. Diego, can you believe it? Alexander Vega himself approved our project, and he wants you to be the operations manager. $5,000 a month, honey. Our life will change completely. Alex listened to her with a mixture of joy and terror, knowing that he had created a situation from which there would be no return. The truth would have to come out, and when it did, he would discover if the love they shared was strong enough to survive the lie that had created it. For the first time in months, he felt that perhaps there was an honorable way out of the labyrinth he had created, but he also knew that the most difficult days were still to come. Alex's plan for a gradual revelation crumbled like a house of cards the next morning, when Valentina showed up at his apartment in Pilsen without warning. He had just showered and was getting ready to meet Camilla at the market when he heard the insistent doorbell. Through the peephole, he saw his cousin standing at the door, visibly irritated, holding a folder of documents. Panic seized Alex when he realized that Valentina had discovered his second apartment. Even worse, she was there, in the heart of his lie, about to destroy everything. Valentina, how did you find this address? He asked, opening the door just a crack. Seriously, Alex, do you think I'm stupid? She pushed the door open and entered the small apartment, examining the surroundings with an expression of complete incomprehension. I hired a private investigator after you started acting strangely. Imagine my surprise when I found out that my multi-millionaire cousin has a secret life in a two-room apartment in Pilsen. Valentina walked around the room, observing every detail of the simple environment. The cheap clothes hanging on the clothesline, the used furniture, the small and old refrigerator. Her expression changed from irritation to a mixture of confusion and genuine concern. Alex, for God's sake, what's going on with you? Are you using drugs? Having some kind of breakdown? Is this a phase or have you completely lost your mind? Alex closed his eyes, knowing that the moment he feared most had arrived. There was no way to hide anything anymore. Valentina, I can explain everything, but you need to promise me you'll listen to me until the end. In the next 2 hours, Alex told his cousin the whole truth. The frustration with self-serving relationships, the creation of the Diego Morales identity, the disastrous dates, meeting Camilla, the pregnancy, and finally the meeting the day before where Camilla had presented her project. Valentina listened to him in silence, her expression gradually changing from disbelief to absolute horror. When he finished speaking, she remained silent for long minutes, processing the magnitude of the situation. Alex, she said finally, in a dangerously calm voice, do you have any idea what you've done? You got a woman pregnant living a complete lie. You're playing with the life of an innocent person who trusts you. I know I've made mistakes, but I really love her, Valentina, and she loves me too. Now I have a chance to do things right with this beekeeping center project. Do things right? Valentina's voice rose an octave. Alex, you're delusional. That woman came to our company yesterday asking for help because her fictitious boyfriend is unemployed and she needs to support a baby. She has no idea that she's in love with a lie. Valentina's words hit Alex like physical blows. For the first time, he saw his situation through the eyes of another person, and the reality was devastating. Camilla had really gone to Vega Industries out of desperation. She was trying to save a family that didn't even exist, as she imagined. And there's more, continued Valentina, opening the folder she had brought. You're not the only Vega with love problems. I also discovered some things about myself. She showed photos of a dark-haired man of simple appearance working in an auto repair shop. This is Raphael. I met him at a charity event that the company sponsored last month. He didn't know who I was. He treated me like a normal person, and for the first time in my life, I felt genuine. Alex looked at the photos, recognizing in his cousin's eyes the same sparkle he felt when talking about Camilla. Valentina. But unlike you, I didn't lie to him. I told him who I was from the beginning. And you know what happened? He continued to treat me the same way. Because people who truly love us despite our circumstances, not because of them. Valentina's words were like a painful revelation. Alex realized that his cousin had found exactly what he was looking for, but in an honest way. While he had built his happiness on lies, she had found true love through sincerity. You need to tell her the truth, Alex. Today. Now. I can't, he whispered, sitting heavily on the small sofa. If I tell her, I'll lose her. And the baby, our son, will grow up without a father. What if she finds out from someone else? What if some journalist makes the connection between Diego Morales and Alexander Vega? What if someone who knows her sees you at the market and comments that they saw you in business magazines? Each word of Valentina was a precise stab at his deepest fears. Alex had been so careful to keep the two lives separate that he hadn't considered the 1,000 ways the truth could come out involuntarily. Even worse, continued Valentina relentlessly, what if she finds out during the pregnancy? The emotional shock can be dangerous for her and the baby. You're putting the lives of the two people you love most at risk out of cowardice. Alex buried his face in his hands. For the first time since meeting Camilla, he saw himself completely without a way out. All options seemed to lead to the loss of what he valued most. If he told the truth, he would lose Camilla. If he didn't tell her, he would live forever fearing being discovered, and when that happened, because inevitably it would, the consequences would be even worse. I don't know what to do, Valentina. For the first time in my life, I found something real, something true, and I built it all on a lie. How can I get out of this situation without destroying everything? Valentina sat down next to her cousin, and her stern expression softened slightly. Alex, you've made a terrible mistake, but it's not too late to fix it. If this woman really loves you, She will find a way to forgive you. If she can't, at least you will have acted with honesty. What if she hates me? What if she prevents me from seeing my son? Then you'll have to live with the consequences of your choices, replied Valentina with brutal frankness. But at least your conscience will be clear, and your son won't grow up in a lie. That afternoon, after Valentina left, Alex was alone with his demons. He walked through the small apartment that had become his prison, looking at the objects that represented his false life. The cheap clothes, the simple furniture, the utility bills in the name of Diego Morales. All of this was evidence of the charade he had created. For the first time since meeting Camilla, Alex allowed himself to imagine a future without her. The idea was so painful that it was almost physical. He had found the love of his life, but he had found it in the wrongest way possible. Sitting on the couch where he had so often embraced Camilla, Alex cried for the first time since his mother's death. He cried for the impossible situation he had gotten himself into, for the pain he would cause the woman he loved, for the son who might grow up hating his father. More than that, he cried for the loss of innocence, for the brutal discovery that not all love was enough to overcome certain betrayals. Night fell over Chicago, and Alex remained motionless on the sofa, looking at the cell phone that was ringing insistently with messages from Camilla asking why he hadn't shown up at the market. Each message was a painful reminder of how much she trusted him, of how devastating it would be when she discovered the truth. For the first time in his adult life, Alexander Vega felt completely lost, without resources or strategies that could save him from the abyss he had dug himself. Alex spent the night awake, deciding and redeciding what to do. At dawn on Saturday, he had made the most difficult resolution of his life. He would tell Camilla the whole truth that very day. No matter the consequences, he could no longer live in the lie he had created. He put on his Diego clothes for the last time, looking at himself in the mirror of the small bathroom. In a few hours, that identity would cease to exist forever. He took a cardboard box and placed inside some documents that proved his true identity: driver's license, credit cards, company photos, to show Camilla when the moment of revelation arrived. At the market, he found Camilla radiant as always. Organizing her honey jars with her usual affection, she greeted him with a kiss that he knew might be the last. "Diego! I thought you had disappeared yesterday. I sent several messages and you didn't answer," she said, with a smile that made his heart ache. "Sorry, honey. I had some problems to solve. By the way, we need to talk. There are some very important things I need to tell you." Camilla noticed the seriousness in his tone, and her expression became worried. "Is everything okay? You seem nervous. Let's have lunch together today, just the two of us. There's a special place where I want to take you," he said, trying to buy time to mentally organize the words that would change everything. "Of course, honey. But I can't leave now. There are a lot of people wanting to buy honey today. How about 2 o'clock? It was at that moment that Alex saw a familiar figure approaching the stall. Valentina was walking towards him, but not alone. At her side was a dark-haired man of simple clothes whom he recognized from the photos as Rafael, the mechanic she had fallen in love with. Panic seized Alex. Had Valentina come to force him to tell the truth in front of Camilla? Or worse, would she tell everything herself? "Good morning," said Valentina politely to Camilla. "You must be the famous beekeeper that my cousin admires so much." Camilla looked confused between Valentina and Diego. "Your cousin? Sorry, I think there's been some mistake." Alex felt his legs weaken. It was the moment. There was no more escape. But before he could say anything, Valentina continued. "Oh, I apologize for the confusion. He's not exactly her cousin, Diego. He's more like a family friend. I'm Valentina Vega, from Vega Industries. I came here to personally meet the woman who presented that incredible project on beekeeping." Alex realized that Valentina had given him one last chance to tell the truth on his own, without exposing him publicly. She was being more generous than he deserved. "Camilla," he said, his voice trembling. Valentina is right about one thing. We really need to talk, urgently. But at that moment, another voice interrupted them. It was Mrs. Davis, a regular customer of Camilla, who approached the stall, carrying a business magazine. "Camilla, dear, have you seen this here? What an incredible coincidence," said the lady, waving the magazine. "This man on the cover has exactly the same name as your boyfriend. Diego Morales, isn't it? Only here it says Alexander Vega." The world stopped for everyone involved. Camilla took the magazine from Mrs. Davis's hands and looked at the cover. There was a photo of Alex at a business awards ceremony, wearing a tuxedo and clearly identified as Alexander Vega, CEO of Vega Industries. Camilla's expression gradually changed from confusion to disbelief and finally to a growing horror. She looked from the photo to Diego, from the photo to Diego, as if trying to process information that simply didn't make sense. "Diego," she said in a trembling voice, "can you explain to me why there is a man identical to you in a business magazine with another name?" Alex knew that the moment of truth had arrived, but the words simply didn't come out. How to explain months of lies in one sentence? How to make her understand that everything had started out of love, even though it had been built on falsehood? "Camilla, I can explain everything. It's not what you're thinking." But Camilla was already backing away, the magazine shaking in her hands. "It's not what I'm thinking, Diego. This says that this man owns the company where I presented my project yesterday. The same company that offered you a job. What kind of coincidence would that be?" Valentina tried to intervene. "Camilla, let him explain." "You knew about this?" Camilla turned to Valentina, her eyes blazing. "You knew that my boyfriend, that the father of my child—" She couldn't finish the sentence. The pieces of the puzzle began to fit together in Camilla's mind with painful clarity. The meeting at Vega Industries, the job offer for Diego, Valentina's presence at the market. It all began to make terrible sense. "Oh my God," she whispered, her hand going instinctively to her still flat stomach. "Who are you? Who is the father of my child, really?" Alex took a step towards her, but she recoiled even further. "Camilla, my name is Alexander Vega. I'm CEO of Vega Industries. But everything I felt for you is real. My love for you is the only thing true in this whole situation." "Alexander Vega," she repeated, as if testing the bitter taste of the words. "You lied about your name. You lied about your job. You lied about your entire life. And you still have the nerve to talk about love." The people around began to notice the tension and moved closer, curious. Camilla looked around, realizing that she was becoming a public spectacle, and her humiliation turned to fury. 3 months, she said, her voice cutting. 3 months pretending to be poor. 3 months watching me worry about money, about the future of our child, about how we were going to survive. You saw me cry with worry. You saw me counting pennies to buy prenatal vitamins, and you didn't say anything. "Camilla, please let me explain why I did it." "Why?" she screamed, tears finally welling up. "Because you thought it was fun to play with the feelings of a simple woman? Because you wanted to see how far a naive person like me would go for love?" Alex tried to approach again. "No, it wasn't anything like that. I just wanted to find someone who loved me for who I really am, not for my money." Camilla's laugh was bitter and cutting. "For who you really are. Alexander, I have no idea who you really are. All I've known is an elaborate lie. The man I fell in love with doesn't even exist." She began to quickly pack up her products, her hands shaking with anger and pain. "I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't want to see you again. I don't want you to come near me or my child." "Camilla, it's our child." "My child," she corrected firmly, "son of Diego Morales, who apparently never existed. You gave up the right to be a father the moment you decided to build our family on lies." Alex felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. It was exactly what he feared most, the worst-case scenario playing out before his eyes. But now that it was happening, A strange calm took over him. He had lost everything, but he was finally free from the weight of the lies. "Camilla," he said in a firmer voice, "I understand your anger. I deserve your hatred, but I'm not going to give up. I'm going to prove that my love for you is real, even if it takes the rest of my life." She stopped packing and stared at him with an intensity that made him recoil. "Don't you dare talk about love after what you've done. Don't you dare show up in my life again. You've already caused enough damage." Camilla finished gathering her products and walked away quickly, leaving Alex standing in the middle of the market, feeling the curious and judgmental looks of the people around him. Valentina approached and touched his arm. "Alex, I'm so sorry. I know that's not how you wanted her to find out." He looked at his cousin with empty eyes. "It doesn't matter anymore how she found out, Valentina. The result would be the same. I lost everything." But as he watched Camilla disappear into the crowd, carrying in her womb the child of both of them, Alex felt something he didn't expect. Determination. He had hit rock bottom, he had lost the woman he loved, but he was not willing to give up. If he needed to spend the rest of his life proving that he had changed, that his love was real, he would do it. The real fight was just beginning. In the days following the devastating revelation at the market, Alex made the most radical decisions of his life. First, he immediately resigned as president of Vega Industries, passing command to Valentina. Then, in a move that shocked the business world, he publicly announced that he would donate 75% of his personal fortune to sustainable rural development projects throughout the United States. The business press went into a frenzy. Newspapers speculated about a possible nervous breakdown. Magazines questioned his sanity, and financial analysts tried to understand the logic behind such a drastic decision. Alex completely ignored the public commotion. His only concern was Camilla. For 3 weeks, she refused to answer his calls, respond to his messages, or receive him at home. Alex respected her space, but he didn't stand still. He worked tirelessly with lawyers and non-governmental organizations to structure his donation so that the first project benefited would be exactly the sustainable beekeeping center that Camilla had dreamed of. Meanwhile, Valentina had become an unexpected ally. Moved by her cousin's genuine transformation, she took on the task of discreetly monitoring Camilla's well-being. It was through her that Alex learned that Camilla had returned to upstate Illinois and isolated herself at the family apiary, refusing to talk about what had happened. The definitive turning point came from where it was least expected. Mrs. Davis, the customer from the market, who had inadvertently revealed the truth, sought out Camilla at the apiary. The lady had felt guilty for her role in the dramatic outcome and wanted to apologize personally. "My dear," said Mrs. Davis, finding Camilla sadly tending her hives, "I didn't know I was going to cause so much trouble with that magazine. I came here to apologize." "You're not to blame for anything, Mrs. Davis. The truth always comes out, sooner or later." "Yes, but sometimes the truth is more complicated than it seems," replied the lady, sitting in a plastic chair in the shade. "You know, after that day at the market, I got curious and researched this Alexander Vega on the internet." Camilla stiffened, but Mrs. Davis continued, "I found out some interesting things. This young man lost his mother very early, grew up alone with a cold father. He never appeared at parties or social events. And you know what else caught my attention? He never had serious relationships. He was never seen with girlfriends. He never got married." "And what does that have to do with me?" asked Camilla, trying to sound indifferent. "It has everything to do with it, dear. A 30-year-old man, rich, handsome, who has never dated seriously. Either he has some serious problem or—" She paused significantly. "Or he was looking for something he could never find in his world." Mrs. Davis's words planted a seed of doubt in Camilla's wounded heart. That night, for the first time since discovering the lie, she allowed herself to remember the happy moments with Diego. The affectionate way he treated her, the genuine interest he showed in her work, the way his eyes lit up when she talked about her dreams. The final revelation came through Valentina, who finally managed to convince Camilla to meet her for a conversation. They met at a cafe in upstate Illinois, away from the curious eyes of the big city. "Camilla, I know you have every reason to hate my family, but I need you to know one thing," Valentina began. "Alex didn't lie about his feelings. I've known him since childhood, and I've never seen him so in love with someone." "Passion based on a lie is not true love," replied Camilla, but her voice had less conviction than before. Valentina opened a folder and showed documents that made Camilla's eyes widen. "These are the papers for the donation that Alex made. 75% of everything he owns will go to projects like yours. The first sustainable beekeeping center will be built right here in upstate Illinois, exactly as you dreamed." Camilla looked at the documents in disbelief. It was millions of dollars destined to transform her dream into reality. Why did he do this? Because he realized that money never brought him real happiness, and because he wants to prove that the man you knew as Diego, beneath all that lie, was real. But the most impactful revelation was yet to come. Valentina showed Camilla a series of photographs and documents that revealed an even deeper truth. In the last 3 years, long before meeting her, Alex had made anonymous donations to various beekeeping and environmental preservation projects in the United States. Diego Morales may have been a lie, but the passion for environmental causes and the desire to help small rural producers were genuine. He didn't invent the interest in your work, Camilla. He really believes in all this. The false identity was just the wrong way he found to get close to you. That night, alone in the silent apiary, Camilla finally allowed her emotional defenses to crumble. She cried for the pain of betrayal, but also for the longing for the man she had loved. She cried for the confusion of discovering that perhaps the love she felt was real, even if built on false foundations. The next day, she made the most courageous decision of her life. She went to Chicago to look for Alex. She found him in the old apartment in Pilsen, which he had kept as a kind of sanctuary of his personal transformation. When he opened the door and saw her standing there, with her belly already slightly rounded by the pregnancy, Alex felt his legs weaken. She was more beautiful than ever, but there was a new maturity in her eyes. "Camilla," he whispered, barely daring to believe that she was really there. "I need to know one thing," she said, entering the small apartment. "The man who made me laugh at the market, who learned about bees with me, who held my hand when I was afraid, was he real?" Alex looked into her eyes, knowing that this was the most important moment of his life. "Camilla, Diego Morales never existed, but the man who fell madly in love with you, who admired your passion for bees, who dreamed of building a family with you, that man is me. No masks, no lies, and if you give me a chance, I will spend the rest of my life proving it." They talked for hours. Alex told her about his lonely childhood, about the pressure of carrying the weight of the family name, about the desperate search for genuine love. Camilla spoke about her pain, her sense of betrayal, but also about the longing she felt for the man she had known. "Alexander," she said finally, "I don't know if I can completely forgive what you've done, but I know I can't pretend I don't love you, and our son deserves to have a present father." The marriage proposal happened 6 months later, in the very apiary where Camilla had grown up, surrounded by the bees that had been silent witnesses to their love. Alex, now living a simpler but infinitely richer life in purpose, had learned to find happiness in the small and true things. Luna was born on a sunny spring morning, with the curious eyes of the father and the sweet smile of the mother. The Sustainable Beekeeping Center was inaugurated in the same year, becoming a national model of conscious rural development. Valentina, inspired by her cousin's transformation, also found her own redemption. Her relationship with Rafael blossomed into a genuine partnership, and together they created social programs that combined business development with social responsibility. The story of Alex and Camilla became legend in upstate Illinois and beyond, not as a perfect fairy tale, but as a powerful lesson about how true love can flourish even in the most unlikely circumstances, as long as it is nurtured by honesty, courage, and the determination to grow together. Years later, when Luna was already walking among the hives with the same passion as her mother, Alex looked at his family and knew he had found the most valuable wealth in the world, a home built on truth, love, and shared purpose. Dear listeners, we hope that the journey of Alex and Camilla has touched you deeply. This story of redemption and true love reminds us that sometimes we need to lose everything to discover what really matters. To continue this emotional journey with us, we have prepared a special playlist full of equally captivating stories about second chances and personal transformation. Find this special collection by clicking to the left of your screens. If this narrative has stirred emotions in you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your like. Each of your gestures motivates us to continue bringing stories that celebrate the complexity and beauty of the human experience. Every day, we share new narratives that explore the mysteries of the heart and the transformative power of true love. Don't miss our next content, and we'll meet in the comments to share your reflections on this exciting journey.